Let me tell you something. When a breakup happens, there's this knee-jerk reaction to text, to call, to prove your worth. But let me ask you, since when has begging ever been attractive? Since when has someone saying, please love me, made you think, oh wow, now I want them back? But do you know what does? Making him feel like he made the biggest mistake of his life. And that doesn't happen by texting him at 2 a.m. or scrolling through his Instagram stories to accidentally like an old post. It happens when you become the woman he can't ignore. Right now, he's probably thinking he has control, he's moved on, he's got all the power. And if you're still giving him attention, still wondering what he's doing, still hoping for closure, guess what? He's right. But what happens when you pull away? When suddenly you stop reacting, stop engaging, stop giving him the comfort of knowing you're still there. He notices, and it drives him crazy. Imagine if diamonds were lying around on the street. Would they be worth anything? No. Now, if you're constantly texting, checking in, showing up in his life, you're making yourself too available. Instead, I want you to become a limited edition. When you step back and focus on yourself, your value skyrockets. Suddenly, he's thinking, wait, why isn't she chasing me? Here's where most women get it wrong. They think, if I just look hotter, he'll want me back. Now, don't get me wrong, looking great never hurts. But what keeps a man hooked isn't just your looks. It's how he feels when he's around you. If he starts seeing the new, confident, happy you, that's when his brain starts replaying memories, wondering, did I make a mistake? Think back to the last time he saw you. Were you crying, angry, feeling broken? That's the version of you he walked away from. But the version he comes back to needs to be completely different. The best revenge isn't a snarky text or posting pictures with another guy. It's showing up as the woman who has options, confidence, and a life so good he feels stupid for walking away. Want to know the real secret? It's not about making him feel guilty. It's about making him miss you. So when he finally reaches out, do you know what you do? Nothing. That's right. You don't rush to reply. You don't get emotional. You don't say, I've been waiting for this. Instead, you give him the one thing he never expected, indifference. And suddenly his mind goes, wait, why isn't she excited to hear from me? Boom, the tables have turned. Here's the biggest twist. By the time he realizes what he lost and comes crawling back, you might look at him and think, why did I even want him in the first place? Because you won't be the same woman anymore. So instead of trying to make him beg for you, make yourself so magnetic that he has no choice but to realize he should have never let you go. Now, the question is, are you going to step into this power, or are you going to chase after someone who didn't see your worth the first time? Breakups have a way of turning even the most confident, self-assured people into desperate emotional wrecks. It's natural. One moment, you're someone's priority, their go-to person, their comfort, and then suddenly you're left with silence. Your brain panics. Your heart aches. You want to do something, anything to get them back. And that's exactly where most people make the mistake. See, after a breakup, there's an invisible scale of power. One person typically has the upper hand. The person who walked away, the person who seems less affected, the person who isn't sending texts at 2 a.m. or stalking social media. The other person, the one left confused, the one who still wants answers, the one who keeps wondering if they could have done something different, that's the person who loses power. And here's the hard truth. Chasing someone who has pulled away only pushes them further. Think of it like this. Imagine you're holding a magnet. If you try to shove it toward another magnet too quickly, what happens? It repels. But if you take that magnet and slowly pull it back, what does the other magnet do? It follows. That's human nature. We want what we don't have. We crave what feels just out of reach. Now, I'm not telling you to play mind games or manipulate someone into missing you. What I'm saying is this: you need to shift the power dynamic so that instead of you feeling the loss of him, he starts feeling the loss of you. How do you do that? You disappear. And no, I don't mean moving to another country or blocking him on every platform out of anger. I mean emotionally, mentally, and physically removing yourself from his world in a way that makes him feel your absence. Because right now, if you're still reaching out, still showing him that you're waiting, still making yourself available, he doesn't feel like he lost anything. Men process breakups differently than women. Women often feel the pain immediately. They cry, overanalyze, and want closure. Men, they tend to feel relief at first. The space, the freedom, it can feel like a weight off their shoulders. But that relief is temporary. Here's what happens next. If you don't chase, if you don't beg, if you don't remind him of your presence every few days, something strange starts to happen. At first, he enjoys the silence. He might go out with friends, focus on work, or even start dating again. But then a shift occurs. He checks his phone and realizes you haven't texted. He wonders if you're upset. Then he starts wondering why you haven't reached out. Days go by and he expects a message, something that lets him know you're still thinking about him, but it never comes. And that's when the doubt creeps in. Wait, is she really over me? Did she just move on that easily? Did I make a mistake? Understand this. A man will only realize what he had when he feels the void. Not when you tell him, not when you try to prove your worth. He needs to sit with the discomfort of your absence, and the only way he will is if you allow it. Think about it. If every time he pulls away, you're still there, still responding, still showing up, he never truly experiences the loss. You're giving him the comfort of knowing that if he wanted you back, he could have you. In life, we're wired to take for granted what's always there. Think about it. When something is abundant, it's easy to overlook its value. That's why diamonds are expensive and air is free. We don't think about air because it's everywhere. But the second we struggle to breathe, suddenly oxygen becomes the most valuable thing in the world. Now apply that to relationships. If you make yourself too available after a breakup, if you're always texting, always answering calls, always trying to be in his orbit, you're essentially making yourself common. You're like air there, predictable, accessible. And the harsh truth, he won't feel the loss because he hasn't actually lost anything. Men don't miss what they think they still have access to. But what happens when you remove yourself? What happens when you stop making it easy for him to know what you're doing, how you're feeling, and whether you take him back? See, we value what is rare. We chase what we can't easily have. It's why luxury brands don't flood the market with endless supply. They create exclusivity. They make people work to get what they want. And that effort, that chase, that's where emotional investment grows. Right now, if your ex knows he can reach out and you'll be there, if he knows you're still hurting, still thinking about him, still hoping he'll come back, he has no reason to reevaluate his decision. But if you go silent, if you disappear from his world, focus on yourself, and show up as a better version of who you were when he left, that's when he starts to wonder. He checks his phone, expecting a text, nothing. Days go by. He scrolls through your social media, expecting to see sadness, loneliness, regret. Instead, he sees growth. You're out with friends. You're glowing, you're thriving, and suddenly a little thought creeps in. Wait, was she always this amazing? Did I mess up? The power of scarcity is that it forces someone to reassess value. When you make yourself scarce, your absence creates a vacuum, and when there's a vacuum, the mind fills in the blanks. That's when he starts replaying old memories, romanticizing the relationship, questioning if he made the right choice. This isn't about playing games. This is about creating space for someone to recognize your worth. And the best part? You don't have to do anything except step back and focus on you, because here's the magic in this process. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop waiting for validation from him, you begin to realize that you were the prize all along. Emotional attraction over physical attraction. Why feelings matter more than looks. There's no denying that physical attraction plays a role in relationships. It's often what sparks the initial interest, the chemistry, the rush of excitement. But if physical attraction was enough to keep someone, then the most beautiful people in the world would never get left. And we all know that's not the case. The truth, looks might turn his head, but emotions keep his heart. If you're trying to get a man to regret losing you, focusing on your appearance alone won't do it. Sure, he might notice if you suddenly start looking better. Maybe you're dressing differently, working out, glowing with confidence. And while that might get a reaction, it's not what will make him crave you again. Because what made him fall for you in the first place wasn't just how you looked. It was how you made him feel. Think about it. We don't miss people just because they were attractive. We miss people because of the way they made us feel when we were around them. Maybe when he was with you, he felt understood. Maybe you were the one who truly saw him, the one who made him laugh, the one who made him feel important, powerful, or admired. Maybe you were the person who believed in him, who made him feel safe, who created a space where he could be vulnerable without judgment. That's what people miss after a breakup, the feeling they had when they were with you. But here's the mistake most people make. After a breakup, they focus too much on proving their worth instead of reigniting the emotions that created the bond in the first place. They think, if I just remind him how attractive I am, he'll want me back. So they post thirst traps. They try to make him jealous. They go out to their way to show that they're living their best life. But the problem is, that only engages his ego, not his heart. If you really want him to feel the loss, you need to trigger emotional attraction. And emotional attraction isn't built through desperation, begging, or proving yourself. It's built through distance, mystery, and self-growth. When you stop being so available, when you shift your energy back onto yourself, when you start embodying the confidence, joy, and depth that made him drawn to you in the first place, that's when he starts to feel the pull again. Because suddenly, he's not just seeing you as someone he used to date, he's feeling what he lost. He's remembering the version of himself that he liked best when he was with you. Become unrecognizable, the power of transforming yourself after a breakup. There's a certain satisfaction in becoming someone unrecognizable, not in a physical sense, but in the way you carry yourself, the way you live your life, the way you radiate confidence and purpose. Because when someone leaves you, they expect you to stay the same. They expect you to miss them, to struggle, to be stuck in the same patterns, living the same life as when they walked away. But what happens when instead you evolve? What happens when the next time he sees you, you're a completely different person, stronger, happier, thriving in ways he never imagined? That's when the regret starts to kick in. Because here's the reality, people don't fear losing what they think they can always come back to. If he assumes that you'll always be there, that your world will always revolve around him, he has no reason to feel the loss. But when he sees that you've grown beyond the relationship, that you're living a life that has nothing to do with him, that's when it hits him. He didn't just lose the old version of you, he lost the best version of you. And the best revenge, it's not making him jealous. It's not proving anything to him. It's becoming a version of yourself so incredible that you don't even need him anymore. Most people get stuck in the same mindset after a breakup. dwelling on the past, overanalyzing every detail, waiting for the other person to come back. But the people who truly move forward, they shift their focus from what happened to what's next. This is your time to grow. Read books, learn new skills, expand your mind. Become so intellectually sharp that if he ever talks to you again, he realizes he can't manipulate you the way he used to. He can't pull you into the same emotional loops. You're operating on a whole different level now. Healing isn't just about time passing. It's about doing the work. It's about confronting the parts of yourself that allowed you to accept less than you deserved. It's about breaking old patterns, setting new boundaries, and understanding your worth in a way that you never did before. When you truly heal, you carry yourself differently. You don't react to things the way you used to. You don't get pulled into drama. You become someone so emotionally stable and secure that when he sees you again, he realizes you're no longer the person he could manipulate, hurt, or take for granted. Change your routines, travel, meet new people, try new things, start a new hobby. Become a person who is constantly evolving, constantly growing, constantly stepping into new opportunities. The more you expand your world, the less room he takes up in it. And when he does look back, he won't see someone waiting for him. He'll see someone who outgrew him. Confidence is magnetic. It's the one thing that will always make people take notice. And the best kind of confidence, it's not about looks, money, or status. It's about the energy you bring into a room. It's about knowing your value so deeply that you don't need validation from anyone else. And when he sees that, when he realizes you've become someone who doesn't need his approval, who doesn't care what he thinks anymore, that's when the tables turn. That's when he starts wondering if he made a mistake. There's an undeniable power in the things we can't have. The moment something feels out of reach, our desire for it intensifies. It's human nature. Now, think about how most people act after a breakup. They chase, they beg, they try to prove their worth, but all that does is make the other person feel more secure in their decision to leave. Why? Because there's no urgency, no sense of loss, just someone standing there waiting. But the moment you stop chasing, the moment you become indifferent, that's when everything shifts. Because when you act indifferent, when you stop giving him the validation he's used to, his brain starts to panic. Wait, why isn't she chasing me? Why isn't she trying to prove herself? And suddenly, without you saying a single word, he starts wondering if he made the wrong choice. That's the power of reverse psychology and indifference. Most people want what they can't have, not what's constantly available. It's why people are drawn to exclusivity, to limited edition things, to the thrill of the chase. When something seems uncertain or just out of reach, it becomes more valuable. Now, let's apply this to your situation. If he knows you still want him, there's no urgency. But if you disappear, if you stop reacting, if you become completely unaffected, that's when he starts to feel it, because now in his mind, he's not the one in control anymore. You are. You're no longer reacting to him. You're not giving him the emotional security he expected, and suddenly he has to question everything. The moment he thinks, did I lose her for good? You've won. One of the biggest mistakes people make after a breakup is feeling like they have to prove their value. They think if he just sees how amazing I am, he'll want me back. So they try harder, they post more, they make themselves available, they do things to catch his attention. But the moment you try to prove your worth to someone, you're subconsciously telling them that they're the prize. And that's the wrong dynamic. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to remind him of what he lost. Your absence will do that for you. Indifference is the most powerful stance you can take. Because when someone senses that you don't need them, that you're perfectly fine on your own, that's when they start wanting your attention again. Think about it. If you text someone over and over and they don't respond, what happens? You start thinking about them more. You wonder why they're not answering. You get more invested, not less. That's the power of indifference. When you pull away emotionally, when you stop reacting, when you make it clear without words that you're no longer affected by him, he'll start feeling the void. He'll start wondering what changed. He'll start questioning whether you ever needed him in the first place. And that's what makes people chase. If he comes back, it shouldn't be easy for him. If you make yourself immediately available, if you act like you've been waiting for this moment, the power shifts right back to him. But if he feels like he has to prove himself, if he senses that getting you back won't be easy, if he knows he has to earn your time and energy, that's when he values it. Because people don't appreciate what's handed to them. They appreciate what they have to work for. And when he realizes that you're no longer the same person he left behind, when he sees that you're not reacting, not chasing, not trying to prove anything, that's when he starts feeling the loss. That's when he starts chasing you. For so long, the focus has been on how to make him miss you, how to make him regret losing you, how to get him to come crawling back. But now that you've done the work, now that you've evolved into a stronger, more confident and happier version of yourself, the real question is, this is the part people don't talk about enough, because when you're in the early stages of a breakup, all you can think about is getting him back. You imagine how good it would feel if he came back and admitted he made a mistake. You play out conversations in your head where he confesses that he never should have let you go. But once you've truly stepped into your power, once you've leveled up in ways you never thought possible, something interesting happens. You realize that maybe he's not even worthy of this new version of you. At the start, wanting him back is about validation. It's about proving to yourself that you were enough. It's about making sure that he sees your value. But the moment you start focusing on yourself, on your growth, your happiness, your future, your mindset shifts. You go from wanting to be chosen to being the one who chooses. Now you are in control. You hold the power. You get to decide if he even deserves access to your life again. Because let's be honest, does he? Or is it just the old version of you that thought he was the best you could do? When he comes back, and trust me, if you've done the work, you will come back, you need to ask yourself, is he chasing you, or is he chasing the idea of you? Sometimes people don't actually miss you. They miss the comfort, the attention, the validation you gave them. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to see you thriving without them. That's not love. That's insecurity. And after all the work you've done, do you really want to go back to someone who only realized your worth once you were gone? Another important question. If he comes back, what's actually different? Because people say a lot of things when they're afraid of losing you for good. They make big promises. They act remorseful. They tell you everything you've been wanting to hear, but words are cheap. Has he actually done anything to show growth? Has he worked on himself? Has he taken responsibility for his part in the breakup? Or is he just looking for a way back into your life without actually putting in the effort? You're not the same person he left, so why would you accept the same version of him that wasn't enough for you before? The biggest revelation comes when you realize that the person he left behind, she doesn't even exist anymore. You've evolved, you've healed, you've outgrown the old patterns, the old insecurities, the old habits that once kept you stuck. So, does he even fit into your new life? Or does he only make sense in the past? Because sometimes when you truly move forward, you see the past for what it really was. Not as something you want back, but as something you learned from. And when you reach that point, you understand something truly powerful. Getting him back was never the goal. At the beginning of this journey, your mind was fixated on one thing, getting him back. You thought if he just realized your worth, If he just saw what he lost, then everything would fall back into place. But as you grew, as you evolved, as you reclaimed your confidence, something unexpected happened. You stopped needing him to come back. Because the truth is, it was never about him. It was about you, about seeing your own value, about stepping into your power, about realizing that love should never require begging, proving, or waiting for someone to finally appreciate you. Now, if he comes back, it's not a victory. It's just a decision you get to make, not out of desperation, but from a place of self-worth. Maybe you'll take him back, maybe you won't. But the most powerful thing is, you no longer need him to complete you. You were whole all along.